and suffer far less anguish in your own life. Hello, and thank you for being with me again. Today I wanted to talk to you about pain and suffering. It's one of those remarkable things people find when looking at the life of Jesus, that even at the time of his death, when he was subjected to great suffering, he was able to think about other people. He was able to look beyond the ridicule, the physical pain and all that he was going through, and say things like, "This day you'll be with me in paradise," to the thief next to him. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing," about those putting him to death and ridiculing him. "Mother, behold your son, and son, behold your mother," to those dear to him at the foot of the cross. And we can say, yes, but he was Jesus, and so obviously it was possible for him, but it's not possible for all of us. However, if we come to understand the difference between pain and suffering correctly, it is possible to undergo pain without the suffering. And if we can undergo the pain without suffering, it can help us to be better people during that time and to still think of others. You see, if our faith allows us to believe that God is in control and that everything works according to his plan, even the things that we don't want in life can be handled and accepted as part of God's plan for us. And if we know that there's a purpose to something, if we can know that it's part of a plan, that changes everything. It's not that pain is pleasant for anyone. We know that Jesus prayed, "Father, if it be possible that this cup pass me by, please take it from me." However, because he knew that this was part of God's plan, he continued saying, "But not my will, but thy will be done." It's a bit about like a story I told about myself, I think in one of the early videos in this series, where I was very little still, and we were going, my mom and dad, brother and sister and myself, in the car to a destination we hadn't gone to before, to a railway station we hadn't been to before. And my dad stopped to ask a friend of his for directions to reach there. We're talking about before navigators and all the rest that we have in cars today. And as I was standing listening to him talking and explaining which way to go to my dad, there was a lot of turn left, turn right, and so on. But suddenly my attention was caught when he said to my dad, "At this point there's a ramp over the railway tracks, and you go over that ramp and then turn." And well, that really stopped me right there. You see, the only ramp that I knew as a child was the ramp we made to go over in our bicycles and do little jumps over the ramp. And so I looked, and I'm talking about the 1950s, and in the 1950s cars were more like armored vehicles than cars are today. They were really heavy. And I looked and thought, the five of us in this big heavy car ramping over the railway tracks, it doesn't seem like a very good idea to me. But when I looked at my dad's face, he was quite okay with it. And so because I had such faith in him, such trust in him, I thought, okay, well, if he thinks it's okay for us to do it, then it's okay and we can go. And so we went, and I can still remember how my parents laughed when they found out what it was that I had thought in hearing these directions when I got there and asked wide-eyed what had happened about this ramp that I'd been waiting for. But you see, I knew my dad well enough to know he wouldn't do anything to us that would harm us. And so it is, if I have faith in God, and I know that he won't allow anything to happen to me that shouldn't, he won't allow anything to happen to me that isn't, in the end, something that can help me to grow something that can help me to be a better person, then even when things come along that I don't want or that I don't like or would prefer not to have in my life, knowing that it's part of His plan can take the suffering away. And I can know that what I'm going through has a purpose. And this is all important. You see, we need to go through pain in order to be able to sympathize with others and empathize with others as well. Because if you've never experienced pain, how would you understand what a person is talking about? This includes physical, psychological, and emotional pain. And those of us who have lost people dear to us, know the terrible emotional pain of losing someone who you're accustomed to having there for you during your life, and suddenly that person is no longer there. And if you've never experienced that, how do you understand what that feels like? And so it's that much more difficult to empathize and to give decent comfort to people who are in that type of pain. And this is why we can look at pain and suffering in a completely different way and say, well, once I can understand pain, and I can see that it doesn't have to mean suffering, because suffering in this case is merely my non-acceptance and my trying to fight against something, the anguish caused to me by trying to fight against something I don't want in my life. Whereas as soon as I can accept that it's probably good for me, even though it doesn't seem so at the time, but God is in control, I can be that much more help to all of those around me, and I can live a far less anxious life. And this is where, if you can develop and keep growing in your faith until whatever comes along, you know that God is there for you. You also learn to trust Him more and more, because in the long run you find out why things happened in the past and why it was actually a good thing, even if it didn't seem to be at the time. And so I pray that you may be able to discern this difference between pain and suffering. And remember that whatever you go through in your life, accepted correctly, is a source of growth for you. And that as you grow, you will become a person who can be of far greater help to those around you and suffer far less anguish in your own life, and therefore find peace. And this is my prayer for you this week. Thank you for listening. God bless you.